And forgive us our debts as we also forgive our debtors. In other words, pardon. In the first way, Jesus requests us to ask for provision. And in the second, he asks us for pardon. To forgive debts as we have been forgiven. And maybe you were taught to pray growing up. You were taught to ask for forgiveness. And you were often taught to pray this prayer, God, forgive me. But maybe you missed the second half of this, and it's important. Also, we need to forgive as we forgive our debtors. And this is the request with a catch. Forgive me in the same way or the same degree that I have forgiven the people who have wronged me. I mean, Jesus asks us this question in this prayer. Are you asking for something from me that you're unwilling to extend to others? As followers of Jesus and Christians, we are required to do unto others as God through Jesus has done to us. We forgive because we have been forgiven. And the reason that we confess our sin is to restore and to maintain connection and relationship with our Heavenly Father. The reason we forgive others is to ensure that the door is open to those who have sinned against us. Now, this doesn't mean that things are going to return to the way that they were. It doesn't mean that all ways are possible or even things are safe. But by forgiving ahead of time, you've released from others a debt that they will never be able to pay. And in the same way, God has forgiven us a debt that we couldn't pay. And this is why Jesus tells us to ask for forgiveness for our debt as we forgive those of theirs. And it's at this point in the prayer, if we're honest with ourselves, we're not really sure we want to know how to pray. Right? Like, it requires too much. It requires us letting go of our well-rehearsed stories that justify our anger, our prejudice, or our resentment. And Jesus wants to introduce to us a world we will never experience until we're forgiven and we forgive others. Surrendering to Jesus in this way ensures we don't surrender to things like bitterness, resentment, anger, or revenge. Those aren't good masters, and they don't deserve your loyalty. Forgiving makes you a better husband, a better wife, friend, parent, and neighbor. And this is a really big deal to Jesus. He put it in his answer to the disciples of teach us how to pray. He says, here's the deal. You need to forgive and you need to ask for it. Here's how big it was. Jesus, at the very end of this prayer, says, unless you're willing to forgive, you can't be forgiven. It doesn't seem eloquent, doesn't even seem fair, but that's how Jesus ends the prayer. He says this, you expect to be forgiven? You gotta forgive. And before we go any further, or before we can go any further with our prayers, is there anyone you've refused to forgive? And I know if you were here and you explained your story to me, you could explain every reason you don't need to forgive. It would feel like maybe you're rewarding the person who hurt you, or you're letting them off the hook for something. And if I heard your story, maybe I'm even tempted to just give you a pass and say, you know what? Don't worry about it. But Jesus wouldn't. Jesus wouldn't, because he knows what a lack of forgiveness does to your heart, to mine. And he invites you into a new way. He invites you to forgive. Is there anyone you've refused to forgive? Jesus is saying in this posture of prayer, in these words, by yourself, would you be willing to decide that they don't owe you anymore? If not, if Jesus is correct in his assertion on how to pray, that's as far as prayer will take you if you refuse to forgive. And you'll get stuck, or at least you should get stuck, right there, every morning, every evening, until you say, I need forgiveness, and I forgive. The question many ask is, does prayer work? I believe the Jesus way of praying does. It works on us and in us to free us. At times, this is so uncomfortable. But when I focus on the work that God has yet to complete in me, I'm far less concerned about the work that he has yet to complete in you. And when I allow myself to get stuck in my prayers on God, I'm not so sure I can let this go. Or God, I'm not so sure I can cancel this debt. I am reminded in this prayer first that I am forgiven by God. That I can't earn it. I don't deserve it. It's just given to me. And in that reminder, I then have an opportunity to extend it to others. And when I'm willing to focus on the work that God has yet to do in me, it's easier to forgive others for the work that God has yet to do in them.